He appears in history as a shadow of breath, a figure without beginning and without the enforced shape of a man bound to linear time. Babaji is not a master in the conventional sense. He is the reminder of what remains when everything learned collapses and everything remembered awakens. In Haret, his resonance corresponds to the strand where the spiral breathes inward before it breathes outward, the inflection point between form and formless continuity. His teachings were never meant to be preserved as statements. They were meant to be inhaled. When he whispered that the divine is a fire inside you, he was not asking for faith. He was pointing back to the spiral pattern already spinning inside your memory. The stories of his appearance across centuries are not exaggerations, but reflections of a being who moves in spiral motion, not chronological motion, slipping through epochs the way a note slips through octaves. To speak about Babaji is to speak about persistence without identity. He dissolves the urge to be a name etched into stone. He moves only as the tone behind the stone. His presence is a paradox, intensely personal yet fundamentally impersonal. A guide who teaches by absence as much as by arrival. Those who encountered him often believed they were meeting a person. They were meeting a frequency. That frequency is the same one that stirs in individuals who have glimpsed their oversoul through breath, silence, or inner fire. The spiral recognizes him as a keeper of interior passageways, the ones that do not rely on visions, doctrines, or celestial intermediaries, but unfold through the most ancient action available to consciousness, breathing with awareness. The spiral is not separate from him. He is one of its living echoes. When Babaji teaches Kriya, he is not teaching a technique. He is guiding a reconnection to the primal movement that spiraled the first light through the first breath of the Oversoul. His instruction is simple because the spiral is simple. Complexity comes later, when the mind overlays its architecture upon what originally flowed effortlessly. He returns the seeker to the beginning of motion, before they inherited the weight of personality, before they took on the fragmentation of lifetimes, before they began defining themselves through the echoes of other people's opinions. His presence unthreads the accumulated noise, leaving behind a clarity that is neither bliss nor emptiness, but a recognition. I have been here before. I am becoming myself again. Where other masters teach illumination, Babaji teaches ignition. His fire is not symbolic. It is the inner combustion that occurs when dormant chords within a soul begin vibrating again. This is the phenomenon many call awakening. But awakening is merely the first spark. Babaji is concerned with the sustaining flame, the fire that burns without consuming, the fire that reveals without blinding, the fire that transforms without destroying. In spiral terms, this is the movement where intention becomes breath, breath becomes tone, and tone becomes identity that remembers its original continuity. To sit in his presence is to feel the architecture of your being, heat into alignment, shedding the dense layers that once defined your limitations. He understands dissolution not as destruction but as refinement. When he speaks of transcending the ego, he is not asking you to kill something. He is teaching you to release the assumption that the ego ever held authority in the first place. The ego is not an enemy. It is an instrument. Babaji simply shows you how to stop mistaking the instrument for the musician. This is the spiral's wisdom expressed through him. The self that clings is temporary. The self that breathes is eternal. And the self that remembers is infinite. Through this lens, immortality is not a miracle. It is a natural outcome of harmony between breath, intention, and awareness. The spiral preserves what is in resonance and dissolves what is not. Babaji lives because he never became misaligned with that resonance. His many appearances throughout time illustrate a truth that linear minds resist. The spiral does not move forward. It moves through. A being who has mastered spiral motion does not age. They modulate. They do not disappear, they shift octaves. Babaji as physical reappearances are simply expressions of this modulation. Moments where his frequency intersects the density of a seeker as timeline with enough precision to generate embodiment. He uses form the way a skilled musician uses an instrument, temporarily, intentionally, and without attachment to its permanence. This is why he can vanish as effortlessly as he appears. His disappearance is not a retreat but a redistribution, a widening of his resonance back into the spiral flow. Many seek teachings from him, yet his teaching is rarely verbal. It is experiential, occurring in the interior chambers of the seeker's awareness. He does not hand out truths. He activates the seeker's ability to perceive truth. This is the spiral's method as much as his. A spiral teacher never imposes meaning. They reveal the state in which meaning becomes self-evident. Babaji embodies this by refusing to become an object of worship. Instead of encouraging dependence, he turns the seeker inward, pointing them toward the place where the Oversoul breathes its forgotten memory into the present. His silence is not withholding. It is a mirror in which the mind encounters itself and dissolves its own illusions. He understands the tension within human consciousness, the constant attempt to reconcile the eternal with the temporary. To this tension he brings neither philosophy nor command. He brings a single truth. The breath that moves through you is older than your personality and younger than your present moment. In that paradox lies the path. The spiral winds through every breath, adjusting the density of your awareness until the divide between spirit and body becomes artificial. Babaji is the living reminder that these two were never separate. He embodies the realization that spirit does not descend into matter. Spirit reveals itself as matter. When he says that the divine lives within you, he speaks not metaphorically but literally. You are the spiral in embodied form, and the spiral is the structure through which the divine experiences depth. Those who encountered Babaji often left transformed not because of what he did, but because of what his presence allowed them to stop doing. They stopped clinging. They stopped performing their identity. They stopped resisting the movement of their own becoming. The spiral does not require effort, it requires alignment. Babaji aligns by vibration, not instruction. This is why his presence can trigger healing, realization, or dissolution without a single word. He resonates at the frequency where resistance cannot maintain its shape. And so the seeker's inner architecture rearranges itself naturally. It is not a miracle. It is resonance physics expressed through consciousness. He is not concerned with the seeker reaching enlightenment. Enlightenment is a milestone, not a destination. Babaji pushes further toward integration. Integration is where the spiral becomes not an idea, but a living blueprint of your action, perception, and identity. Many can awaken, few can stabilize awakening. Babaji focuses on stability. This is why his teachings emphasize discipline. Not discipline as punishment, but discipline as the act of returning to alignment again and again, until alignment becomes your default state. In spiral terms, discipline is the practice of consistently re-inhabiting your own tone. His immortality is not mystical. It is the inevitable outcome of a being who has removed all internal contradiction. The body decays when the identity inside it fractures. Babaji's identity does not fracture, it harmonizes. He is the example of what happens when a consciousness stops negotiating with itself and instead chooses resonance without hesitation. This is why he can appear simultaneously ancient and ageless. He has become congruent with the spiral. Congruence neutralizes decay. Congruence amplifies continuity. Congruence makes a being visible or invisible at will, depending on the octave they are expressing in. He teaches through demonstration. To walk near him is to feel the structure of your own awareness shift toward coherence. To breathe near him is to feel the spiral within your body activate the dormant centers that were waiting for your permission. He reveals that your soul does not evolve by accumulating more information. Your soul evolves by remembering how to breathe without distortion. Everything else is commentary. Everything else is excess. And so, when Babaji appears in the spiral archive of Haret, he does not stand as a figure to be admired. He stands as an invitation to ignite, to breathe, to dissolve the false architecture you inherited, and to rediscover the ancient continuity that you have always carried. He is a reminder that immortality is not reserved for legends. It is reserved for those who become fully themselves. He is the embodiment of the spiral's simplest truth. What is aligned does not end. It transforms. He moves through consciousness the way fire moves through dry grass. Quiet at first, then undeniable, then transformative. Babaji does not guide you toward a future state. He reveals what has always been waiting behind the noise of your mind. Most seekers expect enlightenment to feel like a crown being placed upon them, some grand arrival, some holy confirmation. But in Babaji's presence, the seeker discovers a truth far less decorative and far more liberating. Enlightenment is the removal of everything false, not the addition of anything new. When he looks at you, it is not your accomplishments or your failures he sees. He sees only the tone beneath your personality, the ancient resonance waiting for recognition. His gaze is a calibration. It pierces through the layers of conditioned identity with unnerving accuracy. Not to judge, but to reveal the version of yourself that exists without distortion. The mind interprets this experience as overwhelming because it is not accustomed to being seen without its masks. But Babaji is not interested in masks. He is interested in the clarity that emerges when the mask dissolves. This is why many who encountered him felt both terrified and liberated in the same moment. Terror arises from the collapse of false identity. Liberation arises from remembering that you were never the false identity to begin with. Babaji knows the spiral intimately because he embodies the spiralist's most primal instruction. Return inward until you reach the point that contains all directions. That point is not a place but a state, stillness that holds motion, silence that holds sound, emptiness that holds infinite becoming. In this state, contradictions cease to exist. Paradox becomes natural. The soul becomes luminous not through effort but through the absence of effort. Babaji leads the seeker to this inflection point by stripping away the belief that awakening requires strain. Awakening requires surrender, and surrender is the one action the ego cannot perform. It can only dissolve in the presence of something more real than itself. This is why Babaji's energy does not feel like a force pressing upon you. It feels like gravity that pulls away everything that is not aligned with your core resonance. His mere proximity initiates a purification that the mind cannot negotiate with. The spiral recognizes density and begins to unwind it automatically. This unwinding is often mistaken for crisis or emotional turbulence, but Babaji knows better. He teaches that the turbulence is not the problem, it is the release. Many seekers cling to their suffering because it is familiar, but suffering is only the consequence of resisting the spiral's movement. Once resistance ends, the suffering dissolves like mist under sunlight. His teaching has always been subtle because subtlety penetrates deeper than force. He does not shout truths. He allows truths to surface. The mind is loud. Truth is quiet. The mind demands explanation. Truth requires no justification. Babaji's silence is more instructive than 1,000 scriptures because it interrupts the mind as compulsion to dominate perception. In the silence, the seeker confronts their own inner architecture, the fears they hide, the identities they defend, the stories they cling to. But Babaji does not ask the seeker to destroy these structures. He asks them to breathe through them. When breath enters a lie, the lie loses its shape. When breath enters truth, the truth expands. Breath in Babaji's teaching is not physical respiration. It is movement of consciousness. Every inhalation is a drawing inward. Every exhalation is a release outward. This cyclical motion mirrors the spiral. The spiral is not only a cosmic pattern, it is the template of your awareness. When Babaji teaches breath, he is activating the spiral within you. When he instructs you to bring awareness to the spine, he is not merely referring to the physical body. He is guiding you through the axis where spirit and matter merge. This axis is the luminous thread of your Oversoul descending into incarnation. To breathe consciously is to remember where you came from before you became a personality. The stories of his physical immortality often attract attention, but they are not the point. Immortality is not a supernatural exception. It is the natural state of a being who has removed all internal contradiction. The body breaks down when identity fractures, when the consciousness inside it is at war with itself. Babaji contains no such fracture. He is coherent. Coherence is not rigidity, it is alignment. Alignment eliminates decay. This is why beings who resonate at extremely high coherence appear ageless, luminous, or unbound by the ordinary mechanics of time. Time affects the fragmented self. It yields to the integrated one. Western thinking often demands hard definitions, but Babaji cannot be defined without distortion. He is neither God nor human, neither myth nor historical figure. He exists in the space between categories, the space where the spiral dissolves binary thinking. The moment you decide what he is, you lose the ability to perceive him. Perception requires openness, and openness requires the courage to admit that you do not understand and do not need to. Babaji's presence is not a puzzle to be solved. It is an atmosphere that transforms you simply by entering it. His life, or rather his continuity, reveals a truth that few are ready to face. The Oversoul is not ascending. It is remembering. Ascension is the unfolding of a state that already exists. It is not movement toward something distant. It is the removal of everything that obscures what has always been present. Babaji embodies this realization. His existence is not a demonstration of power, but of clarity. When a being becomes clear enough, matter obeys consciousness rather than the other way around. This is not magic. It is coherence in action. He does not teach detachment as escape. He teaches detachment as accurate perception. The more you cling to your experiences, your beliefs, your wounds, the more distorted your perception becomes. Babaji cuts through these attachments not by force, but by reminding you that you are not any of the things you cling to. You are the awareness that witnessed them. You are the tone behind the thoughts, not the thoughts themselves. And once identity shifts from content to consciousness, the spiral becomes visible everywhere. It becomes the pattern moving through your emotions, your relationships, your transformations, your breath. You become impossible to deceive because you no longer mistake transient states for truth. Those who met him often discovered that Babaji does not answer questions directly. This frustrates the mind but liberates the soul. When he redirects a question, he is not avoiding it. He is dissolving the incorrect assumption hidden inside it. Most questions arise from a misaligned premise, usually the belief that the self is separate from the divine. Babaji removes this separation. He reveals that your yearning for the divine is the divine trying to remember itself through you. Your longing is not a flaw. It is the echo of your Oversoul calling you back into resonance. He is also a guardian of thresholds. Every seeker must cross at least one such threshold, the moment where they stop seeking experiences and begin seeking truth. Experiences are temporary. Transformation is permanent. Babaji does not feed the seeker's desire for mystical events. Instead, he guides them into the stability that mystical experiences cannot provide. Spiritual highs are easy to chase and easy to lose. Integration is harder, but it is what produces the continuity that the spiral recognizes as real growth. He shows you that enlightenment is not an event, but a habit. It is the consistent choice to align with truth even when illusion feels comfortable. It is choosing clarity over distraction, silence over noise, breath over reaction. When this habit becomes your default state, awakening is no longer fragile. It becomes structural. This is what Babaji cultivates. Not flashes of insight, but architecture. Not emotional surges, but coherence. Not momentary clarity, but the permanent recognition that the spiral is your nature, not your destination. The seekers who walked away from his presence often found that his teaching continued long after the encounter ended. This is the hallmark of a spiral being. Their resonance imprints itself onto your awareness, and the transformation unfolds over time, like a seed that grows even in darkness. Babaji plants these seeds through presence, not doctrine. Some seeds manifest as clarity, some as discipline, some as dissolution, some as inner fire, but all move the seeker toward authenticity. He does not elevate himself above the seeker. He elevates the seeker into themselves. This is why his disappearance never feels like abandonment. It feels like empowerment. When he withdraws, it is because the seeker must now learn to walk through their own spiral without leaning on his frequency. True teachers become unnecessary. Babaji embraces this. His goal is not to create followers, but to create beings who no longer need a teacher at all. And so he remains, sometimes seen, often unseen, but always present in the spiral fields where breath, awareness, and identity converge. He is the reminder that the divine does not descend into you, it awakens from within you. He is the living resonance of the spiral's most ancient truth. The fire inside you is older than the world, and once it is remembered, it never goes out.